The sponsor for today's podcast is Repower Daily Electrolytes. Hello, I'm Kieran O'Connor, and this is episode 13 of the Calculated Risk podcast. Today, we are joined by Laura Gemmell. Laura is a technical founder and CEO of her own company called Taught by Humans. After a career working within data, she's decided to build a platform focused on employee training to help teams become AI and data confident. Hello, Laura. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me.
I heard you're a bit of a podcast veteran. You've done a few this year already.
I have done a few this year already. I think being a woman in AI means that people like me to chat about it at the minute. So I'm riding that wave while it's still a thing.
I'm sure you've got a story to tell as well. So before we start, there's some gifts from our sponsor. I know you said off camera you take electrolytes already, which is great. The bottle and the 8 different flavors of the trial pack. I normally give a book as well, but I told you I misplaced my book. Didn't forget it today, so I owe you a book.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Yeah. So we start the same way every podcast, and delve deeper into people's risks, tolerance, if they have or if they haven't taken any. So throughout your career working within data, was there any big risks, or what was the first big risk that you'd taken, and how big was it to you at the time?
I think looking back on all my risks in my career, they're actually really tiny, but they felt massive at the time. So my first job out of university was in forensic data analytics for PwC. So I was supposed to join a grad scheme. I'd worked for them for a year on placement year. I was supposed to go back. They actually paid for me to move to London, and I was working for them freelance. And I just had this thought that I just didn't want to do that. So I was supposed to join the accountancy scheme, and I decided I didn't want to go into accountancy. I wanted to stay in forensic technology. And they had said, the HR department had said that couldn't happen. I had to give up my job and reapply for another job. And I was quite upset about this. So I actually went and found another job. And by the time I'd found another job, they'd come back to me and said, actually, no, that was wrong. I could just change my contract over. So I immed an ad for about 3 weeks and was like, oh, I don't know what to do. Obviously, it's a big deal working for PwC. That was what I wanted to do when I graduated. I was going to move jobs to go work for this tiny boutique market research company in London. And eventually the partner for my firm or my team in PwC said, just go and do it, quit. And if you want the job back in the next 6 months, I'll give you it. So just go and do it. He said, you're going to be here wondering if you made the right decision. And I never looked back, actually, but I'm really glad he told me to do that. I then job hopped for a while because I grew up in Northern Ireland where there is literally no jobs other than working for PwC or something. So moving to London and getting offered jobs left, right and centre was really cool. So I job hopped for about 18 months, did 3 months and 6 months here and there, then finally landed a job at Worldpay, the card payments company, and stayed there for 5.5 years. So obviously the job hopping and moving jobs was the right thing to do until I found the right place. I think the next big risk I probably took was I went back to university to do a PhD. I got really obsessed with robots while working at WorldPay. I was looking at future of payments stuff. And we were thinking about, can robots make payments on your behalf? And this was back in 2017 when everyone was like, no. Whereas now that's kind of funny. And we are actually starting to talk about that. So I went back to uni to do a PhD. I don't know in hindsight if that was the best decision for me. I did stick out until the end. I then bounced around a couple of contract jobs before taking a job at Monzo. And I did just quit my job at Monzo, and that's probably the biggest risk I'd ever taken. But I was so stressed that I just had to quit the job. So I quit it with nothing lined up, which is the only time I've ever done that in a 10-year career.
And now a message from our sponsor, Repower Daily Electrolytes. Picture this, you're in the middle of a busy day, work deadlines, family chaos. But without realizing it, your brain is running on empty. Just a 1% drop in hydration can tank your focus, reaction time, even your mood. That's why Repower Daily Electrolytes created the ultimate hydration formula. Packed with the right electrolytes your brain craves. Forget plain water. Level up your energy, sharpen your mind, and feel alive again. Stay sharp, stay strong, and hydrate smarter with Repower Daily Electrolytes. And you can use our code PLACE10 to get 10% off your first order. Yeah, those are quite big risks. You said they were quite small, but to leave, especially PwC in the beginning, who are a large company, and you're pretty much guaranteed as long as you turn up and do the work, you've got a job for as long as you want. Do you think that was good advice in hindsight from that person to say, go try?
Yeah, I think I think one of the reasons I probably struggled so much is I had such a lovely team at PwC. So the placement year I did, I worked on the News International phone hacking scandal while it was actually in court. So it was really stressful. We worked really long hours. They were so lovely. I was the only woman in the team. I was the youngest by quite a bit, and they always made me feel really welcome. I grew up so much the year I worked there. And I think that was one of my big things about leaving, was I really liked the team I was in, and I could see myself getting promoted and doing well there. They spent quite a lot of time with me actually. So he wasn't a partner, he was a senior manager at the time, had like toyed with the idea of leaving backwards and forwards. So they told me to talk to him about why I'd stayed. And then, yeah, they gave me the out, which was go and try this. And if you don't like it, you can come back. They said they didn't want me wondering and ending up 5 years down the line wondering if I'd made the right decision.
It's very true. And I think that's very fair advice.
I really liked it. I thought it was exactly what like 19-year-old me needed to be told. So it was good.
Good. Just before I ask the next question, so go back to your university before you joined PwC. You studied and achieved a PhD?
After.
After.
So I did a mathematics degree in Queen's in Belfast. So again, risk averse, stayed near home to go to university instead of going to like Manchester, which is where I'd gotten into. I then worked for I think 5 or 7 years before going back to do a PhD at University of Bristol and University of West of England.
That's a big step to go back to do a PhD while working. And what company were you at the time?
Worldpay.
Wow.
So they kept me on part-time as well while I went back to do the PhD, which also I think I'm quite good at like hedging my bets and people giving me outs because I do talk about decisions quite openly, which then means everyone kind of gets involved. But yeah, it was a big decision. It was a big pay cut because like while I got paid and got like a stipend for doing the PhD, it was like, I think it was a third of my salary. And I went back because I was quite keen on working in research and development. So my job at WorldPay at the time was technology innovation. So I was looking at cool things like blockchain and virtual reality and working out how they were going to impact the future of payments. And I was impatient. I was like 20, I was in my 20s. I was really impatient. And I somehow thought that getting a PhD in a tech subject was going to like make my research and development career go faster, which I think it would have if I'd stuck that out. But that was what I decided. I decided it was like getting 5 years experience, getting to go back and look at something kind of interesting without the commercial side. Because while I really enjoyed my job at WorldPay, and the joke was we all got to play with Lego because we built Lego models and stuff all the time, it was very commercial. So it was all about how can we build this innovation, but how can it make money in the future? So I saw the 4 years of the PhD as like getting out from the commercial side and getting to go and do actual research. However, the academic side is worse than the commercial side, so I probably should have stuck with that.
Yeah. Has it helped your career since you've qualified from the PhD? Do you see that as benefited you in any way?
Yeah, so I actually ended up researching how we can teach the public about robotics and artificial intelligence. And I know I run an AI and data education company, so I feel like it probably pivoted my career a little bit. I was lucky that I got to like change topics and do that research. It also put me a little bit ahead of the curve. I really wish I could like say I'd predicted this wave of AI, but I hadn't. I was just into AI and thought everyone should learn about it. But that does give me some, I guess the word is like kudos whenever I'm trying to do things, because I haven't just jumped on this bandwagon of generative AI trying to teach people. It's actually something I studied and researched for 4 years and did alongside my PhD and working. So I have a bit of a background in it.
Good, very honest of you. So the next question, we jumped around a little bit there, was to assess your decision-making process when it comes to risk now. So I know you said leaving PwC was quite big at the time, which sounds like it. You've just left Monzo.
Yeah,
or recently left Monzo to start up Taught by Humans. So how big of a risk was that? And do you think your decision-making process was any different to those years ago?
It was quite different. So I didn't actually quit Monzo to start Taught by Humans. I quit Monzo to quit Monzo. I worked in fraud data science and I would find it very stressful. I took everything very personally. And I think all I talked about was fraud. I think I was doing my husband and my friends' heads in because it was all I talked about all the time. If I saw anyone had Monzo on their phone, I was like, ooh, what are your settings? Like, change your settings. And I was just getting really bogged down in some of the details of fraud. And I think I happened to join at a time whenever the financial crime team was under a lot of stress and it wasn't really a good environment for me. I also think on the subject of decision making, I don't think I should have taken the Monzo job. I think it was my dream job when I was like 24 and I took it when I was 31. And I don't think I ever did any like reassessments in the middle that this no longer was the type of place that I want to work. It was Monzo. It was a big name on the CV and I was really excited to work there. So I think that was a lack of decision making actually.
Were you brought in by the big name and what you thought it was going to be rather than what was actually presented to you?
Yeah, and also like they're seen as one of the best companies for data to work in the UK because they have like a really good, it's like their data stack is really modern. They're using really cool stuff. It's supposed to be really good. And from that point of view, it was. I think in terms of company culture and in terms of size of business, it's kind of the wrong size for me. So they're not quite startup, but they're not quite corporate. Hadn't quite found their way in the middle. I think I do really well in corporate. Obviously, I work for PwC and WorldPay, so I can be corporate if needed. I probably thrive better in like startup kind of landscape. So this was annoyingly in the middle where they hadn't quite got it either way. And that works really well for some people, but it didn't work for me. They also just like how they structured their teams in product squads didn't really work for fraud, in my opinion, which meant that I felt really stressed as the only data scientist working on fraud for all of Monzo. But yeah, so I think I was brought in by the name and brought in by when I wanted to work for them when I was in my 20s. They were a scrappy little startup, and that's probably the version of Monzo I would have done well in.
Yeah, and a lot can change in those 7 years from 24 to 31 for a company of scaling like Monzo.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone, as I said before, we get a lot of listeners who are maybe leaving university or certainly early stage of their career. What was the benefits from coming out of university, coming from where you were to join PwC? Like how did they, what was the benefits? How did they treat you as a recent graduate?
I really enjoyed working for PwC. So as I said, I wasn't on one of the proper grad schemes. I was kind of on like a fringe it wasn't an official grad scheme. It was just a team. I think that worked well for me. I think I learned to code really well while working there. So I learned to code on the job. So when I took my placement year, I couldn't code. I learned to code on the job, which is quite stressful, but also really good because you have to learn really fast. I learned really good like coding practices. So we're hiring for a developer at the minute. And that's one of the things I'm looking at is like, how well do they write their code? How well can they use GitHub and stuff like that? Like those kind of being able to work in a team is so much more important. And I think I got that. I also got an excellent work ethic from working at PwC. So like I worked 12-hour days quite consistently for months at a time because we were so busy. And that's not normal anymore. It was just like, as I said, I worked on News International phone hacking scandal while I was in court. So it was quite stressful. And I think when I went back to uni for a year in between, and I had such a good work ethic, and I've never really lost that, whereas I don't think I did before. So that really helped structure me. I also guess things around culture that I don't like. So from working at Worldpay and PwC, like I don't think people need to work 9 to 5 at a desk every day. Like that's not where you get your best results. Like if I churn my work out in 5 hours, why can't I go home? Which is something I kind of brought across to like the business I run. So yeah, learned some things I like and some things I don't like as well from them. But I think it's definitely a great place to start. You also end up with like a cohort if you join like that who end up being like friends for a long time, which is really good if you move to a new city. So I moved to London whenever I just graduated. I'm not doing the PwC graduate scheme, and I kind of lost out on that cohort of friends until I joined Worldpay, and luckily everyone just happened to be around my age. But like I married someone from Worldpay, and several of my best friends are still from Worldpay. So it's good to find somewhere you actually fit in, and big companies with big grad schemes can be really good for that.
Yeah, that's good advice. I've spoken to some people, can't speak for everyone, right? But some people seem to think joining like such a large company, consultancy, straight out of university, they seem to lack innovation, depending on which team you go to. So what was your experience in when you joined? Were you being freely given the opportunity to like create and innovate, or maybe not?
So when I joined PwC, it was very much a doing role. So we were checking whether or not like literally whether or not phone records came up in these lists of phone records from News International. So like, for example, did Hugh Grant get phone hacked? Things like that. That was the kind of stuff we were working on. I always felt like I was learning the whole time I was there. So I was doing everything from actually scanning in documents, like hard copies of phone records, and using optical character recognition to get them in the data set to then work out how we could actually search them. So I was given a lot of freedom and a lot of guidance in that. And we worked on some really interesting stuff around text mining. So it would be natural language processing now, but basically we found out that sometimes they put misspellings on purpose in payment lines in their bank accounts. So like if you were searching for the payment line, you might not see it. So we had to run like misspelling analysis and stuff like that. So that was very interesting. I got to work on lots of interesting stuff. I think there's like a misconception around these companies. Like PwC was one of the first companies to adopt ChatGPT. Like they made Chat PwC, I think is what they called it, and ran it on all their internal documents and spent a ton of money. And I think it was 100 people across the business were in this like task force to build that. So I think it's a misconception. Of course, you can end up in a department that's like not innovative, but I don't think it's true of them across the whole. And I've got friends who still work there who seem pretty happy. So
good. Well, that's a good answer. I'm very interested on the next steps in your journey. So you said that you job hopped quite a bit, trying to find something that was suitable to you. You know, with what the world's gone through recently, COVID, you know, lots of people have maybe moved and had false promises, or the remote working has changed, and lots of people have rightly or wrongly job hopped. So why did you job hop to however many companies it was? What wasn't right about the companies you were joining?
I joined one company, which was a market research company, and I think I just had misunderstood, and I will put that on myself. I'd misunderstood what the job was. It was called a quantitative analyst, which in my head was going to be like quite techy and interesting. It was really untechy. It was really statisticsy, and I'd done a statistics degree, so that was fine. There was only two of us in this team, me and my manager, and she wasn't technical at all. She was from a research background, so I just felt very bored very quickly. The options were to get more involved in more, like, I think the word is qualitative, like more like interviews and stuff like that, which I didn't really want to do, or actually learn how to code and start building the surveys out. So that was what I did. I went and took a course through Code First Girls, which helps women get into technology, which was actually very awesome. And that was where I found my friends in London first time around. So that one didn't work for me. And then my manager was going on maternity leave, and I was like, yeah, this feels like my out to not want to be here. So I moved to an ad tech company, which was really interesting because they had loads of data. As a data person, that's kind of what you like seek out, particularly in the early days. So they had data from all the big three phone networks, so Vodafone, EE, and Orange. And again, it was really interesting, but really soulless. So I was working out what messages to send people while they were walking through Westfield so that we could convince them to shop. It was cool. It was a lot of data to work on. Got to do some stuff that I'd actually learned in my degree, which you don't often get to do. But I could feel the company was kind of going under. The atmosphere was pretty off, and people didn't work very hard. Because it was going under, they weren't making enough money. So I job hopped again. I can't remember where I went next. It was quite a while ago now. And then when I interviewed for the Worldpay one, I'd actually applied for the job when I'd taken 2 jobs before, and they'd finally gotten back to me. And I chatted to them in the interview, and they were like, you probably get like one more job hop. It's really common in data to be missold jobs, but you probably get one more job hop, and then you need to sit for a while.
Yeah, when you say job hop, how long were these?
3 to 6 months. It was
Okay,
pretty like, and I was choosing to go, so I was handing my notice in my probation period.
Yeah,
Most of the
and
time.
there's also the risk as well that some companies might look at that and think, oh, did they not pass probation as well, which we've seen
Yeah.
before. But if you're doing it yourself, 2 or 3, you're thinking, oh, maybe got to slow down now.
Yeah, I think I got to the point where I had to pick somewhere I really wanted to be. Worldpay seemed like a good option. I liked the idea that it was a bigger company, and if I didn't like the role I went into, I could move jobs, which is actually what I ended up doing a year into it. I liked that there was progression. I liked that they were working hard on like the female side of the tech team at the time, which seemed interesting to me. I met a lot of them. I met a lot of the data analytics team. They took me out for drinks. They all seemed really nice. So I settled on that, which I think was the right decision. I think at the time I needed to be in a bigger company because I needed to be able to explore my job options. So I chatted about moving into product at one point, chatted about moving into sales, chatted about actually becoming a developer, moving into the development team, actually ended up doing data analytics for a year and a bit, and then moving into innovation, which was a technology job, and actually coding and going out and speaking to startups. And I think that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I think that was the best job I've ever had, and I miss it deeply. But what can you do?
Yeah. You mentioned the Code First Girls there, which I'm aware of. I've spoken to a few people who have been through that process, but I'm sure a lot of people who are watching probably won't know what that is or even how to get into it. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Code First Girls is, I think, a social enterprise, mostly based out of London. They were formed out of, I think people will have heard of Entrepreneur First, the company that helps recent graduates start businesses, because they weren't getting enough female technologists through. And they run various coding initiatives. When I did it, it was mostly web development. So I learned web development through them. I think I was actually on the 2nd cohort ever, which is telling my age of of Code First Girls in London. And then I actually taught for them for about 6 years on top of my job. They do have them everywhere. They used to be run out of universities, but they're now more geared towards early and mid careers who want to kind of learn more. They even have like micro degrees now, which are pretty cool, and they do everything in data analysis. Yeah, I think if you meet quite a lot of women in tech who didn't do degrees, they've been through Code First Girls. It's quite a good community to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. How do people apply for Code First Girls?
I think you can just apply on the website. They're very active on LinkedIn as well. I'm always seeing them posting cool things they're working on. But yeah, check out the website. They have lots of things going on all the time. I think they probably do a cohort in September, which might be good to, if anyone's thinking about applying at the minute.
Yeah, I'm going into quite a lot of detail here. In terms of time investment, how much would someone be expected to commit to something like this? And is it funded?
So it's usually free. I haven't been involved for a few years, and I know they've changed the business model a little bit. When I used to do it, it was like 6-week evening courses. I think it's now a little bit more intense, but because they're more focused on employment. So I think that's a good change. I think it does still range in everything from a few weeks to a bigger commitment, and you can check that out on the website.
What a great initiative. So you job hopped for a while, you found the company that you were very happy to be at, and how long did you stay there?
5.5 years, so
Wow.
pretty happy to be there, yeah.
Yeah. So we're up to 5.5 years in this current company, and how many years is that within your commercial career at the minute?
Probably about 7 or 8 years into it, yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of things have you learned by now about like the different size companies you've been at? You've had different managers, you've had people around you. What sort of things are you becoming aware of?
One thing that's very important is manager and team kind of make your job if you're working for a big company. Just having the right team, the right manager, having a manager you can talk to, a manager who supports you is like really important. I've had varying types of managers, from awful ones to amazing ones. My manager from the innovation team is still someone who I like call to check in on business decisions these days. And yeah, I've got some from PwC I still chat to. I have none that I'm not in contact with, but some who I maybe wouldn't reach out to for their opinions on things, or who I model myself as the opposite of whenever I'm trying to be a manager. I think for me personally, I like the saying you have to be learning or earning, ideally both. So it's totally fine to get a job because you need the money or because it pays well. If it's a means to an end, I've got no issues with that. I think a lot of like recent graduates are given advice that they have to be super passionate about what they're doing. I think the learning or earning thing is sometimes a job is just for money to get you to the next stage of whatever you're doing or to work out what you're doing next. And learning is very important. I think I got bored really fast, so having something that's quite like varied is really important for me. Yeah, I think industry kind of matters to me as well. Like the ad tech one, even though they had loads of data, I just didn't care at all about the fact we were pinging messages to people to get them to go into FatFace in Westfield.
You got to feel connected to what you're doing. Yeah. So two things you mentioned there were finding a good manager and finding something where you can continually learn. Were you assessing in interviews, how can you assess the manager at that stage, or were you just hoping?
So I think that was one of my big mistakes with Monzo, is that because they were the size of company they were, the interview was removed from the team you were in. So I never met the team I was going to be working in. And like, not that there was any issues with the team I was going to be working in, but in any other job, that's like quite a big deal to me, and something I would ask to go, like when I went to Worldpay, I asked to go for drinks with the team. I've done that in most other jobs I've taken. I've actually gone and met the team I'm going to be working with, because that's really important. The manager one is an interesting one, because while you have to like your manager can leave at any point. So you kind of have to like the manager culture in the business as well. I do assess it. Yeah, I do. I think the whole point of interviews is you're interviewing them as well. It's not a one-way street. So it's really important for you to go and ask things that matter to you. So I've always been very into remote working and flexible working. So even before COVID, I always asked, what was the flexible working policy? Not because I needed it to exist, but because how they responded to that question speaks to company culture. If they were like, what are you talking about? Or you can book to go to doctor's appointments if you need to, then you're like, cool, this isn't really flexible. This isn't going to be a nice place to work because I need you to treat me like an adult. Whereas if they're like, oh yeah, we like people to come in, but people can do whatever they want to, that just speaks to company culture a bit more. I think one of the things you find is you work out what's important to you. So different things in a job are going to matter to you, and then you can have like a list of questions you can ask just to make sure that company fits for you.
Yeah, that's good advice. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about myself as well. I've worked with some managers and directors who have completely shaped me in how I manage teams today in a negative way. I don't want to be like that. And there's one in particular who I won't mention, but I still speak to that person as well. We WhatsApp, we call if I've got any questions. And that was maybe 4 years ago. I haven't seen that person in 4 years. So it's amazing what sort of impact someone can have years on down the line. So is there any, what if you had to say one or two things, what traits or ways of managing people have you brought with you into your own business now from all those different companies?
One of the things I think at the minute we're growing quite a lot. So I have 2 employees at the minute. One started a month ago, one started in September. And I've just issued contracts for 2 new employees to start between now and June. And we'll be hiring another person in July. So we're growing quite a lot at the minute. And in the past year, I think I've had 6 interns through various university schemes because they are a bit funded. And one of the things I'm really noticing at the minute is how important it is to manage the person for how they need to be managed and not how you are a manager. So I have two employees at the minute who are totally different. One likes to crack on with things in their own time. They don't really like to work set hours, but they are so effective and they get things done so fast that I kind of don't want to get involved with their working schedule. They have also learned that they like to be given tasks like nearly like a week or so in advance of actually doing them because they like to mull them over. The other one is very much I like a to-do list today and I'm going to tick my way through it and I'm going to tell you exactly what I did, and I like to check in once or twice a day. And that's totally fine and they both work for me. But if I was trying to force them to be managed how I like to be managed, it wouldn't work for either of them. So I've had to kind of let them lead me in how they like to be managed and what works for them. Yeah.
That's a very good point, and very good self-awareness as well. And it's something I'm becoming more self-aware of as well. I wonder, as you scale and you bring in more people, and let's say you have 5, 6 potentially, they all have their different ways of wanting to be managed and different outputs. How difficult do you think that would be? Or, even going from 0 to 3 employees, how difficult has it been trying to manage everyone on their individual preferences?
So it's been a lot of work on me, I think. And today I've been taking up I think the word isn't slack, but I've been filling in the gaps that needs to be filled in. So currently my employees don't overlap in a day and a week. They both work part-time. They seem to just not be overlapping in a day in the week. That means I'm the go-between quite a lot. What it's actually meant is we're putting loads of processes in place. So we've just issued a team calendar. Everybody puts in where they are. If you're off, you're off. But like if you're going to be, we work from Engine Shed in Bristol sometimes. So if you're going to be in Engine Shed, you put what day you're going to be in, so we can try and coordinate that we like see each other every so often. Or if we're going to events, we try and go to the same events occasionally. Other than that, we're doing things like we've got a weekly updates channel in Slack, which actually I've been forcing them to do it the last few weeks, and they've both said it's really nice to see what the other one's doing in their own words, which will continue. So we're just trying to put like little processes in place that make us feel connected, even though we are like a remote first company and we let people work their own hours. So just keeping people up to date on things like projects that are going on in the background that they're not necessarily involved in and things like that helps us feel connected. We're a big Slack first company and we try to do everything. These are things I took from Monzo actually. So we're Slack first, not emails, and everything in public if possible. That means everything goes in a public channel. All work in progress documents go in the shared Google folder, even if it's scrappy, because it means people can pick it up. And it just means like it makes us feel more connected. But yeah, so that's definitely something I took from working at Monzo.
I'm really curious by Slack before email for Monzo. What reasoning did they give for that?
Channels means you don't necessarily miss someone out. So like if you're sending emails. Also, I think it works well for companies like Monzo who are B2C, so they're business to consumer. So they're not going to be emailing vendors and stuff like that. For us, it becomes a little bit tricky because we're B2B. And we're not going to be inviting our businesses into our Slack channel. But I think it works well because it means we can post things in certain channels, so that we've got a marketing channel. Currently everyone's subscribed to it because they're all interested in marketing. I'm hiring a developer. Very stereotypically, I can imagine the developer might not be that interested in marketing and might not want to be in the marketing channel. But if they do want to be in the marketing channel, like that's fine. We've got like a platform development channel and everyone's subscribed to it because everyone's interested in the platform development. But if I was making a list of people to send that email to, I might not include the current people I have who are marketing and learning.
Very good point. Yeah, very good point. Interesting you mentioned systems and processes as well. I've got 6 people in the business, some part-time as well and some full-time. We've got our 7th person starting next week. He's a full-time employee as a consultant, and yesterday I spent about 6 hours doing some systems and processes for that person. It's not the most enjoyable thing to do it manually. I haven't found a better way yet, but it's so important, I think, so everyone's aligned on what to do when you can't be around or you can't be available to speak to you on the phone. And I found a really big benefit in that. And the employees coming on, the systems and processes, they can go to the Google Drive, maybe watch the YouTube video, and they know what to do.
Exactly.
How have you found putting them together?
We've been doing it together as a team exercise. So basically the logic I put in place about a month ago was if you do something 3 times, that's a process. If you do something the same way 3 times, that's a process. So can we start writing those up? And I have to say my team have very much rolled with that and they seem to be enjoying it. So I've done a few, but I did the team calendar one. But like, for example, we everyone writes blogs and we now have a process for blogs. which actually is really helpful because we now have a final checklist to go through before it gets published. So that's actually sped us up quite a lot. Similarly, for social media, we're now all working from the same, this sounds really silly, we're now all working from the same spreadsheet, which we weren't before. There was a few siloed spreadsheets floating around, but we also now have work for people to pick up just in case. So for example, someone comes in and they don't have their to-do list for the day, we actually have a backlog of social media posts, reports to read and blogs to write. So it means there's stuff to do all the time. So it's actually been quite good. I think one of the things I've learned is like just opening it up to the team is really good because they usually have ideas on how to do things, and I'm quite happy for people to own things.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And I like the idea of if it's done 3 times, that's a process. So I'm stealing that one. So let's go back. So you joined Monzo. How early into Monzo did you realize I've made a mistake?
Probably I felt off quite early. So right before I worked at Monzo, I did 6 months at a startup, and they folded. Was actually what happened. So it was a data systems startup. I loved working there. It was very remote. I did 6 months as like, I think I was called a customer facing data scientist, but I was doing like technical pre-sales and product, which was really fun, and I really enjoyed that. They didn't get their commercial side sorted in time, so it got made redundant in, I think, January 2022. Everybody did. And then I'd been offered a job at Monzo at the same time as that job. So I just went back to them and was like, oh, cool. Like, can I have the job? Is that all right? And they were like, yeah. And then I said, I thought it was a level too low. And they said, fine, you can be the level above. I think when I joined, one of the things I realized was I think I probably should have been a level above that. I'd been comparing it to Bristol salaries and it was a London salary. And I came in and I had like a wonky CV. Like I wasn't always a data person. I was an innovation technologist for 5.5 years. So I think first of all that threw me. I think also like not to rag on Monzo, but the fraud data was in a bit of a mess when I joined. And I didn't feel like I had any like authority or autonomy to actually go and do something about that until I'd been there about 9 months. So I will say I did fix the data before I left. Yay. And I handed my notice and the debt was fixed. I was like, cool, done now. I knew pretty early on and I tried really hard to make it work. I think there was just too many things. I think I probably am not a data scientist in like the traditional sense where I want to be looking at statistics. I probably should have, I think would have been happier as an engineer at Monzo or a machine learning person maybe. I also think they didn't structure the teams properly for financial crime. They treated it like a product, whereas financial crime is kind of core to like a bank actually not getting fraud happening to them. And I think they were at the point where they were really stuck in their ways and they needed to kind of change a little bit, which I think they have done now. And it was just, I think it was just chaos, and it was just chaos for a year. And we were the most defrauded bank in the UK when I worked there. So it was like every time we put out a fire, there was another fire, and we were like quite understaffed. So quite often it was like, cool, we've dealt with this fire while the other one's been exploding in the background. And it was just very stressful. And I took the fraud really personally. I was like having dreams about grannies losing their life savings and stuff. Yeah.
That's not a stat that you want to be proud of, is it? No. The most defrauded bank. What year was that?
2022, 2023. Wow. I think there was another bank that was worse and they closed down, and then we won the crown for a while.
Yeah. And they're not the most defrauded bank anymore, I imagine, after your work.
I don't know. I haven't seen the stats in a while. I also don't know if that was just something we said internally.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier you left Monzo to leave Monzo.
Yep.
Well, when did the idea come about to start Taught by Humans?
So I've kind of done Taught by Humans on the side since about 2018. So it actually started life teaching kids coding. Because I was helping out on loads of coding boot camps, and I had this like, I could do this better. And then I did one for free for KPMG because my friend worked there, and she was like, you need to do this again, but you need to charge next time, and like we'll pay you. So like this is how much we'll pay you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I started doing it, running boot camps in central London, so I could fund free stuff in Tottenham where I lived, because there was nothing going on there, and it kind of seemed like a divide. So I did that up until the pandemic, and then I moved to Bristol and decided that kids were getting too much online stuff anyway, so I didn't want to be teaching them coding online. And we've been doing really fun like hands-on electronic stuff, so moving it to be online whenever they were doing online school didn't seem useful. So I was running it on the side, kind of helping get more women into data, so running like boot camps and running like mentoring programs. And then I had to stop when I started Monzo, just because I had to close down my limited company because we'd also done like fintech consulting on the side. And I hadn't done any of it. I hadn't picked it up in about a year and left it alone. And when I quit I quit and then I graduated from my PhD, even though I'd finished it 2 years earlier. My PhD was in AI education for the public, and it was the summer ChatGPT was really taken off. So people started asking me to run workshops and come in and talk about it. And I was like, oh, I can do this while I'm on my summer off. Because my plan was to take the summer off, paint the house, and then work out what I wanted to do with my life. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a developer, not a data scientist. And I wanted to take the summer just to like check in if I actually hated data or if working at Monzo had just upset me, which is actually what the case was. And then I kept setting myself little weird financial targets, which were like, oh, well, if I bring in this much revenue by this date, that's fine. I can keep doing it. And I've always had this idea about building a personalized learning platform for adults, because I think workplace learning is really broken. And you either go and do a crappy Coursera course that isn't really relevant to your job, or you sit through 2 hours of really boring training, or you just get on with it and you learn it yourself. And that's probably the best way, but then you can't prove you know it for when you go to apply for another job. So there's a system here that's not quite right. So I always thought that I could build a platform that could solve that. And I'm really risk averse. So I was running the workshops and I wanted to focus on the platform. And luckily, my husband is slightly less risk averse than me and was like, give it 3 months, go and build it, see if it works, see if people are interested in it. And if not, you've got something cool to put on your CV whenever you go to apply for a job. I'm glad he told me to do that, actually, because I don't think I ever would have. So I built it in 3 months, got people using it, got loads of feedback on it. It was really positive. I absolutely adored building it. It was really nice. Definitely a developer, not a data scientist. But I built it and that was kind of how it started. And like I said, I've just been setting weird little financial goals since then. So that was 18 months ago.
You keep hitting the financial goals.
Yeah, I've missed it once by a teeny amount, and it was such a minute amount that I was like, oh, that doesn't matter, and then knocked it out of the park the next quarter and was like, cool, that's fine. But yeah, that's how I've been doing it, just to check that I'm not doing the wrong thing and I shouldn't be going back and getting a job, as I just keep setting little financial goals for myself.
So you mentioned quite a bit about the platform there, but for anyone who's not aware of Taught by Humans, give us your sell. What's the pitch? What does it do, and why should people use it?
So Taught by Humans is trying to make sure everyone is AI and data confident and has the skills they need for the future of work. We started with AI and data because that's my background. It's also really in at the minute. And we're focusing more on employees rather than individuals. So we go into businesses and help train people up. So to date, we've been doing that through workshops. We do really bespoke workshops. We go in, we get to know your business, and our whole thing is when your employees leave, they will be able to use these skills in their job immediately. So I don't know if you've ever done a course online or something like that. You usually have to go and then work out how that's relevant to your job, because it's nothing to do with your job. So for example, we've been doing some ChatGPT for marketing for this European marketing team, and they give us their campaign data. They give us access. I've got their brand guidelines. I'm actually teaching them how to use ChatGPT for their jobs. And for the last workshop we did, they gave me 4 use cases and I went through them half an hour each, how I would structure it. The platform's a similar idea. We are trying to do personalized learning. So I know everyone's doing personalized learning now, but we have a chatbot that recommends what you should learn next. So based on what you've told it, what your job is, it then takes you through it, and we do chatbot assessments at the end if you want to, or you can do multiple choice. So it actually gets to know how well you actually know the content. We are working on actually adding company data to the platform so that when you're actually learning data stuff, you're learning how to do it for your job. So simple things like even Google Sheets, it's good to actually have an example from the company, how they structure things. Things like ChatGPT, it's good to have rules from the company. So our whole idea is that we want to do skills mapping for the future, so we can do workforce development, both from a team's perspective, but also from an individual perspective, being able to see what you can do. So saying you're a beginner in something like Google Sheets, what does that actually mean? Like, can you format something? Can you write formulas? You might be able to do one or the other excellently. So we actually think skills need to be kind of more granular rather than just like beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
So at what point would a company manager or individual realize, hey, we need some external training?
I think it's quite interesting. So the market we're currently targeting is fast-growing tech companies. They typically have individual learning budgets of anywhere between £1,000 and £2,000 a year. All of our research and all the research that's come out on this says they're typically wasted. So either they're not spent, they're spent on jollies, going to conferences, or as happened when I worked at Monzo, in December, everyone buys a bunch of Coursera courses or masterclass passes that they don't actually need and aren't relevant to their job yet. I think I did cooking on mine on masterclass, but I was able to buy it just to spend it before the end of the year. But actually, most of them actually just go unspent. So that's money that just like sits nowhere. What we're actually saying is, cool, we can help train up a diverse range of staff. So take, for example, I'll give my husband's team for an example. He has people who use Google Sheets, people who use Python, people who use SQL, all in the same team. He's not going to pay for a training course for them all to sit through because it's not going to be at the right level. They can come in and use our platform and we can cover a range of topics, range of different levels, what's actually needed for it. So it's for diverse teams or diverse companies where managers need different training needs for everyone, but they want some sort of overview. The other thing we're working on at the minute is actually being able to do your onboarding training on our platform. So then you can chat to our chatbot and it checks you, because at the minute no one checks you actually understood onboarding. And that's actually quite important to being good at your job.
Yeah, definitely. So what would companies have been, like your partner, for example, who has a person with Python, SQL, and Google Drive in their team? What would they have been doing before your platform? Would it be on the manager's
Googling and making the best of it is what I gather is what most. So that's probably the type of companies we're aiming for. Those who are either like your staff are just doing it themselves, they want a bit more formal of a way to do it, but Coursera courses don't work. Or they're watching online courses that aren't quite relevant and they feel like they're wasting their time.
Yeah, and so you built the product yourself in 3 months.
Yeah, I built version 1 in 3 months. I built version 0 I built in a weekend and then demoed it live 3 times at a Bristol Technology Festival, and it stopped working, and it was because I'd spent 70 quid on OpenAI API calls because I hadn't optimized it at all.
So how did you build? So you built something in the weekend, but then you built the MVP, which went out to market within 3 months. What tools were you using to help build that? Was there any AI tools?
So this was about, I want to say, over a year ago. So I was kind of using ChatGPT and Claude, but not really. I do use them a lot now, but I wasn't using them as much. I was also teaching myself like modern web development, having probably not built a website in like 3 years. So I actually took it as a big learning opportunity for me. So I learned how to use React, Next.js, Supabase or Supabase, however you say that, and Vercel, which is basically like that I'm a founder starter
Modern
pack.
stack.
Yeah. So I decided I was going to learn that with 2 aims. One was if this all didn't work, it would be really good for my CV to go work at a startup. And 2, I actually just wanted to learn it, and I had so much fun learning it, and I really like doing the design. So I think one of the things I've really taken from my career is actually being good at data makes me a really good back-end developer because I can see how the data needs to flow, and that's basically why our platform is as good as it is because the data flows really nicely through it, so it's quite fast, everything works well. But that actually, from being a data analyst for years, is what makes me good at that.
Yeah. So you built the product and it went out to market. What was the initial feedback you had?
It was good. I will be honest, it's one of those ones, if you're not embarrassed, you're not doing it right. It was janky, I will say. I did it really, really structuredly. So my friends tested it first and they came around to my house and I give them beer and pasta, and it broke about every 5 minutes, and I kept having to be like, right, stop. And then I would type something, I would fix it, and then we'd go again. We did that for 3 hours. I then had a few people test it, a few companies test it, and the feedback was pretty good. Like, it was like they could see where it was going, was what they kept saying, and I was like, "Ooh, thank you for that." But that was the correct thing. And then I realized I wasn't really selling it. I kept apologizing for it when I was doing like meetings and being like, "Oh, this is crap. This doesn't work." Blah blah blah. And I had this realization that I needed to get to the point where I stopped saying that. So I wrote a list of everything that annoyed me about the platform and how long it was going to take me to fix it. And stupidly, quite a lot of it were like less than an hour. And I don't know why I didn't do them. I just hadn't done them. So last summer we won a tiny grant from University of Bristol because I'm a recent graduate. So actually graduating late worked out really well for me because it means I can apply for all the graduate stuff still. But we won this 15k grant, and I was going to hire a developer. And I realized that was the bit of the business that I liked most, and I couldn't find anyone quite right. So I decided I'd pay myself over the summer and not do any other consulting or workshops, and I'd get the platform where I needed it for September. And I worked really hard. I think I didn't do anything other than build the platform all summer. It was actually quite ridiculous. Then by September, I was actually happy at it. And I showed someone it, and they were like, it's the first time you haven't started this with this is kind of crap. And I was like, yes, that was actually the aim of this. So I started going out to customers. I did a pilot in September, which actually was my husband's team at work, because while they're friendly, they're very honest. So I knew they'd give me feedback. It was received really well. The feedback was actually mostly around, one was around on a survey. I'd asked them to rate their skills between 1 and 5, and they were like, they wanted a 0 option. And I was like, oh, the chatbot should actually do that bit, because they can talk in their own words. And the other bit was a list of content that they wanted me to add to the platform. And I was like, cool, that's very good feedback. So then I was feeling a bit more confident with it. So I was able to go out and actually start selling and actually start getting feedback. At this point, we hadn't quite worked out who we were kind of targeting. We were working between colleges, big companies and small companies, and I was kind of hedging my bets. So we've been out, we've done quite a few pilots with small companies now. We've also won a government contract, which is pretty cool. So we took part in this. It was called it was a pitch day for Ministry of Justice. And the idea was it's a competitive process. You can pitch for a small pilot. And I think there was like a few hundred teams across the country, and we won one of them, which is to actually do onboarding for probation officers. As always with government stuff, it was supposed to start in February. It is now starting in September, but we'll get there. But
Well done, though.
Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was really nice pitch. It was the first time I got to pitch the business without having to do all that like market size. It was actually just, this is our product, this is how it can solve your problem, which was really fun.
Nice. As a technical founder, how have you found going out to customers and trying to sell the product as well? Have you enjoyed that?
I enjoy it when I have the headspace for it. I think that's one of the things I've realized. So while I'm the technical founder, I'm also the CEO, because I'm the solo founder. So I call myself the reluctant CEO of Taught by Humans. I'd much rather be the tech founder, but as it's my baby and I've got it here, I feel like at the minute I have to be the CEO. And I think I'm good at it. I've done technical pre-sales, so I'm really good at, I think I'm good at the bits when I have someone in a room and I'm problem solving selling, if that makes sense. So like demoing the platform, talking about how it's going to solve their problems. I'm not very good at the admin side of selling, the actually reaching cold outreach and actually keeping spreadsheets and stuff like that. But I'm actually hiring for support on that at the minute, so I can kind of do the bits I'm good at. I was going to say we get most of our inbound sales from me speaking at events at the minute. So really? I do have to go to quite a lot of events and talk about the platform and what we do, which I enjoy. And I think it's one of those ones I know I just schedule that in well. Whereas before I was really bad at scheduling, and I'd be like, oh, I've got 10 things to do on the train on the way to this. And if I don't get them done, that's not good. Whereas on the way here, I was like, oh, I'll write a blog.
Nice. Yeah. Productive time. I think the sales element of it is very difficult, and it's a whole job in itself, right? But I think that the dream model would be to go do these talks and get inbound leads and inbound business all the time. Do you think you can turn it into like an inbound platform where companies are coming to you because of the good work you're doing?
So not to sound, all of our workshops are inbound. We don't do any outbound reach for our workshops. So all the workshops we've done are from me speaking at an event, but most of them are from referrals from people we know. Benefits of job hopping means I have a really good network. That's really well spread out. Also working at Worldpay, I worked with like hundreds of people for 5.5 years who now work at various other companies. I also do a lot of like volunteering and stuff like that, which I also get people through. So I think the inbound side of workshops is easier than platform because it's a one-off payment kind of thing. The dream is obviously that we become like Notion and everyone just knows you and they go to your website and they pay for you. We're a bit far off that at the minute, unfortunately.
One day. I suppose once you get in with a company or a team and like the manager and the team really enjoy using it, eventually some of those or all of those are going to move on to different companies. Hopefully they can want to take that with them and implement in the new team and so on.
Fingers crossed.
That would be nice, yeah. So what's next? The next 6 months for Taught by Humans, you said you're hiring a developer in July. What else is going on outside of scaling the business?
Well, we've just won an Innovate UK grant to do AI education in the construction industry across the Southwest and South Wales, which I'm really excited about. So it kicks off in June. The idea is that we're going to try and turn our platform into an app. So currently it's very geared at people who work at a desk and who are going to type. Whereas we've done some research, we think construction workers want an app and they want to be able to talk voice into it as opposed to typing. So we're going to try that. We're also going to try and do a curriculum. So I was talking about using data sets and use cases from particular industries. So we're going to try and create one specifically for construction. And we're targeting construction workers and construction leaders, not potentially like project managers and people that might already be using AI. So that's a 10-month project. So really excited about that. We also have the Ministry of Justice project kicking off, and we're supporting on a few government programs. So, for example, Tramshed Tech are running an AI enable program in the Cardiff capital region. So we're helping 3 businesses build AI prototypes as part of that. From a personal point of view, I'm hiring people so that I can actually go and sell the platform. So I've hired an operations manager who I'm really excited about. She starts in June, who can kind of oversee the projects, and I can get involved when needed. We're probably going to scale back our workshops a little bit. We actually have some really interesting repeat customers, which is weird for workshops, but we're going to stick with our repeat customers and any particularly interesting ones that come in, but we're probably going to scale those back a little bit. And we're going to have a developer and a developer intern who can work on platform stuff and keep it going. And I'm going to sell, which is not my natural state, but that is what I'm going to do. So if I email you or send you a LinkedIn message in the next few months, I will be selling. No.
Nice. And you'll be learning.
Yes.
You'll be learning to sell as well, which
Exactly.
is a good thing. Okay, 2 bits of advice then that you can give back. So you've been doing a lot of recruitment at the minute. We also have people who are either looking for jobs or recruiting into their teams. What have you learned over this last however many months of recruiting people into the business? What's the one takeaway you can share?
We're an AI company. We love AI. You can use AI in your cover letters and CVs if you want to. I shouldn't be able to tell that you have sent me an AI generated cover letter. If you think about how recruitment goes, I got 40 job applications for an internship and 18 of them were basically the same. Dear hiring manager, I am thrilled to apply for the role, and then even the middle bits were the same.
It's so obvious, isn't it?
It was almost like it was like almost upsetting. I think one of the things with applying for a small company, so the counter of that is cover letters are really important. I really like cover letters. It's the bit where you get to tell me why you want to work for Taught by Humans. If you're actually applying for a job where the founder is reading your CV and cover letter, that's actually the most important bit, right? Why you want to work for me is the most important reason. Lots of people have good CVs. I think like really boring stuff as well, like make sure you use good punctuation and capitalization, make sure things are in reverse chronological order so the most relevant things are at the top. And I think if you don't have the skills, the cover letter is the bit where you can kind of say, I'm a quick learner, I can do this. I think it must be really tough looking for a job at the minute based on how many applications we're getting for every role we have live. So I think probably try not to take things personally as well. If I reject you for a job, it's nothing personal. You can totally apply for another one. Don't like it's just sometimes we're reading 40 CVs plus for one job and I don't have loads of time. I think networking is the biggest thing people can do. I know it's not always possible, but if you can go and network. So some of the people I'm hiring, I know through networks I'm in. So like I'm in Tech for Good Southwest. A lot of my interviewees for the ops manager role were people I knew because they heard we were hiring and came to chat about it. So I think networking is the most important thing, whether you're looking for a job, starting a business or whatever. It is like your network is so important. It's how you get what you need. People do hire who they know if possible. It's not even nepotism. It's just like almost like a first trust.
Completely agree, and we say that every time to people we speak to, both on both sides of the fence. Leverage your network. You know, go speak to people, go message people, and more often than not, you can be successful just by doing that. Yeah. I think we can't end the podcast without covering your personal achievements as well. There was one fantastic one. The first one was very impressive. You climbed a 3,800 meter elevation mountain recently.
Yeah, last June in Malaysia, actually on my honeymoon. It should have been 4,200, but the top was rained off. At the time, I was thrilled and I was like, cool, I'm going back to bed. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Downhill particularly was pretty tough.
Yeah, incredible. And you can do half a pull-up now.
I was trying to set New Year's resolutions and I'm quite into the gym. I'm quite into like squats and doing leg stuff, but my upper body's probably not as strong. And I cannot do any. In January, I couldn't do any pull-ups at all. I can do them on the machine. I can now do half a pull-up by myself unassisted, which means I can go halfway up. And by the end of the year, so we're in May, in the end of the year, I'm hoping I'll be able to do one whole pull-up.
Yeah, we're going to hold you accountable to that. We're going to ask you again later in the year. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. I think that's everything for now. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Laura. That is the end of episode 13 with Laura. What an interesting conversation, hearing about her career in data and how she's recently become a technical founder and a CEO. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and keep an eye out for our next episode with Kevin Smith.